Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're all doing awesome today. It's time to check out some more Reddit posts from r/EntitledPeople, so if you guys are ready, let's jump in. Entitled host tried to keep me from eating at a nice restaurant. So my wife Zena and I made reservations for a very nice restaurant that opened up in January. However, due to it being posh, new, and apparently had excellent food, my wife and I had to wait until last week in order to get a spot there. So we got a babysitter and a nurse for my granny-in-law, and got all dolled up to go. We took my wife's car, and since it was brand new, she didn't want anyone but herself to drive it. So she dropped me off at the door and went to park the car. Now it's important to note that we did call earlier and confirm the reservation, so the host was there. Now I am well dressed up, a nice suit, a nice haircut, clean shaven, and nice shoes, looking like a man of culture and not as the tradesman I normally am. I guess at this point I should mention that I am not fully white. I'm Irish American on my dad's side, but more importantly, I am also half Cuban that comes from my mom's side. While I do mostly look like my father, I have darker skin, brown eyes, and black hair like my mother's side of the family. From the way the host looked at me, I just knew this was going to be a problem. He had the face of a man that was witnessing a dog taking a dump on a carpet and scrunched his nose like he was smelling its crap. I was thinking I should wait for my wife since the reservation was under both of our names, but he spoke first. "Can I help you?" said the host. His tone clearly stated that he didn't even want to look at me. Trying to pretend not to notice, I say, "Yes, there's a reservation under Phil and Zena." The host quote-unquote looked at the list. He was clearly not really reading it. "No, I don't see your names here," said the host. Now, I experienced this sort of crap my entire life, so I try to remain as polite and professional as possible. And I say, "Check again." My wife called and confirmed the reservation. He checks again, shaking his head. "No, there is no one here under that name. Mayhaps you and your wife are at the wrong restaurant?" Yeah, I knew arguing with this guy was going to get me nowhere, so I just wished him a good evening, turned around, and walked right outside. Zena was just about to enter the building as I was coming out. "What's the matter?" said Zena. So I explained about how racism was being a pain again, and she sighed. "What do you want me to do?" said Zena. "Well, we got the reservation and a night to ourselves. I want to try the food here, and I refuse to let that snot get in the way of that. So you go in, confirm the reservation, and then I'll come in." I hate to say it, but it's a tactic we had to use in the past in order to get into restaurants. I should mention that my wife is white, hence why we did this. Most cases, it's just the host that gives us the problems. If it's the service as a whole, we would leave and leave a poor review. Still, it's fun in a way. It's still fun to see my wife go in, get us our table, and then me walking in to sit with her. The host looked like he swallowed something really sour as I sat down across from my wife. I half expected him to say something, but he just turned his head away. The service was lovely, the waiter we had was polite and quick, and the food was wonderful. But every so often, the host would look over at us and just frown. I saw him turn away 2 more couples that weren't up to his standards. Well, our evening was wonderful. Despite the nasty looks we got, we still enjoyed our food. Of course, my wife called the owners and let them know what the host did and tried to do to us. She let the owners know that she will not tolerate such intolerance from a man that was turning away business. She added that such a host would eventually cause the restaurant to get a terrible reputation, and they would get into a lot of trouble over it. Well, 1 week later, I was talking to some neighbors and found out that the host was no longer working there. Rumor has it that he turned away over 200 customers, not sure if it was true or not, and got fired over this. They hired someone that was much nicer, though Zena and I wouldn't find out until November when we go back again. Still, it's not the first time, nor the last time that this will happen to me. Yet it's still nice to see racist people like that getting wrecked in the end. Now, there's a bit of a debate in the comments about whether or not this was actually a racial thing. I personally think it's pretty likely that it was. I don't know what else it would be. Most people in the thread seem to agree, but it's just like 1 or 2 people that are trying to dismiss it. I wonder if he actually turned away over 200 customers over time. Because you would think if he did that more people would have complained, right? Maybe that was just an exaggeration, I don't know. Either way, at least he's out of there, and I think these guys calling the owner to tell them about this was probably the final straw. Entitled mother demands my deaf employee apologize for ignoring her. For reference, I've spent 15 years of my life being a restaurant general manager. I've got some crazy stories. Anyways, I was reminiscing lately and this story came up. It was Mother's Day, one of the busiest days at my restaurant. Quick service, self-seating, casual dining. The entitled mother already ordered, had her buzzer, and was waiting for a table to open. She sees another family get up and immediately runs to the dirty table to reserve it. No big deal, right? Just need to bus it. The entitled mom sees the deaf employee and begins yelling at her from behind, so the deaf employee doesn't notice anything at all. The mother continues to berate and follow the employee. Now, I understand that there is no sign saying my employee was deaf, but I believe a normal person would realize that something was off after getting no acknowledgement at all. I noticed something going on and walked over to the already irate entitled mother and asked if I could help. The entitled mother goes off about the deaf employee ignoring her request to clean off the table and help her family sit down. I apologized to the mother and explained that my employee didn't respond to her shouts because she is deaf and genuinely had no idea anyone was trying to communicate with her. I signaled one of my bussers to come clear the table while I continued speaking with the mother. This is when the entitled mom accused me of lying about my deaf employee. She demanded to know why I would hire someone who couldn't respond to her shouts and demands. I was getting very annoyed at this point. I explained that I didn't need to justify any of my hiring decisions, and that I 100% stood behind my team. The mother began demanding that I fire the employee. She said there was no use for a deaf person to work in a restaurant. This got me fuming. At this point, her table had been bussed. Her kids were sitting, looking quite embarrassed, and her buzzer was going off, informing her that her food was ready for pickup at the counter. To me, there was no reason to continue with the entitled mom, especially on such a busy day. I asked her if she needed help picking up her food, and if not, I wished her a good meal and excused myself. The mother was not done with my team. She again saw the deaf employee restocking some items, and decided to prove me wrong. The mother approached the employee and again began berating her using very offensive language. When the employee turned to face the entitled mom and realized that she was being yelled at, the employee was frightened and confused. I never allow my employees to be harassed, and this was especially evil. I immediately had my expo counter pack the woman's order to go and handed it to the woman and told her to leave. The mother called me a C-word and told me she was going to contact corporate and have me and the deaf employee fired. Yeah, okay, like I've never heard that before. I escorted the mother and her poor children to the door and told the mom she was not welcome back in my restaurant. Side note, in case you were worried about the employee, she was crying and was so confused by the situation. I sat with her in my office and explained that this had nothing to do with her, and she was an amazing employee, which was absolutely true. She worked with me for over 5 years and was the first deaf employee to be a certified trainer for her position in the company. I still keep in contact with her, and she is genuinely such a special person. It's really nice to hear that OP actually turned her away and told her to never come back. It's really sad the amount of customer service workers that have to deal with people like this and never actually get a chance to refuse them service because oftentimes they'll just get in trouble with their superiors. Entitled dad gets his son bitten by a venomous snake. This past weekend, I decided that it would be a good idea to hit up some biking trails at the local nature preserve. I packed up my trail bike early in the morning to go riding, since the morning was the coolest the temperatures were going to be for that day. A thing to know is that in Texas, we experience triple-digit heat in the summer, and because of this, snake encounters are much more frequent in parks and nature preserves. Most of the time, the snakes tend to avoid places where people frequent, even more so with bikers. However, sometimes there are rare encounters. On to the story. I was riding through the trails, just enjoying the scenic ride. I was enjoying cool temperatures due to the forest overcast and the wonderful serenity of nature. I had soon reached a part of the trail that ran alongside a creek, and up ahead I saw a park ranger holding a long stick and standing next to a plastic container. I also noticed that he was intensely focused on something on the side of the trail. As I approached, the park ranger saw me and quickly put his hand out, motioning me to stop. I immediately hit the brakes and got off my bike. Out of curiosity, I tilted my head to catch a glimpse of what the ranger was focused on. What I saw caused my eyes to grow wide. On the side of the trail was a very beautiful, but very venomous copperhead that was coiled up to strike. I quickly checked my surrounding area to see if there were any other snakes near me. Luckily for me, I didn't see any. I nervously watched as the ranger caught the copperhead using his stick, carefully placed it inside the container and slammed it shut. Breathing a sigh of relief, I say, "Nice catch." Holding up the box, the park ranger responds, "Thank you. We usually don't get copperheads on this part of the preserve. This little guy must have wandered over here overnight." Enter the entitled parent. As I got closer to the park ranger to get a better look at the snake, I heard a voice coming from behind me. A kid, about 12 years old and with a British accent, was approaching with his dad, a tall and very husky fellow, and saw the ranger holding up the box with the still very pissed off copperhead inside. "Daddy, look! That man has a snake. It reminds me of the one I had back in England," said the kid. "Pretty one, isn't it? Maybe we can take it home as your new pet snake," responded the dad. The dad walked right up to the park ranger and said, "Excuse me, sir, do you think by chance you could give me that snake so I can let my son keep it as a pet?" The park ranger gave the man a look that clearly had the expression of, "Are you serious right now?" "I really don't think you want this snake as a pet," said the park ranger. "Rubbish! I've had pet ball pythons for years back in my home country. This snake won't be any different," said the dad. "This is definitely not a ball python, nor a snake you should treat as one. Just give me the snake." The entitled dad suddenly snatched the box away from the park ranger and pushed him back, causing him to stumble backwards and fall into the creek. I rushed to help up the park ranger. As I was doing so, I saw the Darwin Award-worthy moment unfold. Looking at the snake, the kid says, "Daddy, he's beautiful. Can I pet him before we take him home?" "Sure," replied the dad. The dad opened the box containing the still pissed off copperhead, and the kid proceeded to reach inside. The snake wasted no time and immediately lashed out and bit the kid's hand. The kid cried out in pain and started crying. The entitled dad threw the box on the ground, to which the snake quickly escaped into the bushes. I was very attentive to where the snake landed and slithered off to. While the dad was checking on his kid, the park ranger called for a medical unit, and notably, a police officer. The dad seemed confused about the call. "I don't think the medical call was necessary. It's just a minor snake bite." "I don't think you understand, sir. That snake wasn't just like a harmless ball python. That snake was a copperhead. Bites from them are venomous." "Wait, so you're telling me that you guys just let venomous snakes just freely roam the park?" "Well, sir, this area is part of the snake's natural habitat." "Still, you guys should be doing something about that. People walk through here." "That's exactly what I was doing until you took the snake from me, sir." The dad then looks at me and says, "Can you believe this rubbish? Don't bring me into this, dude. After all, you did take the snake from the ranger." The dad just scoffs. A golf cart with a medic and what looked like a senior ranger arrived, and the medic immediately sat the kid down to look at the bite. The senior ranger walked over to us, and the entitled dad wasted no time complaining. "You blokes ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Public park with dangerous snakes wandering about?" And the senior ranger responds, "Sir, this region is a part of their natural habitat. While we work to keep them from public areas, you are still going to encounter them from time to time. But from what my coworker tells me, you took the snake from him and then let your son try to pet it?" The entitled dad is getting visibly nervous and says, Yes. "Well, we have an ambulance to take your son to the hospital at the park entrance, and an officer that would like to have a word with you. I suggest you come with me." The entitled dad sheepishly got onto the cart with his son, and the four of them all left for the park entrance. I took the opportunity and finished up my bike ride, while keeping an eye out for any more snakes. When I got to the park entrance, I saw the senior ranger from earlier. I curiously asked him what happened after they got back to the park entrance. Apparently, the cop they called was waiting for the dad when they got there. The cop let him off with a warning, but not after giving him a stern ass-chewing about how he should have arrested him for child endangerment. What I can't help but think about is, what if this dad and son found the snake themselves and there was no one else around? Would they have still acted the same way and try to pet the snake and take it home as a pet? And when one of them gets bit, would the dad still be like, "Oh, it's no big deal. I know exactly what this snake is. It's definitely not venomous," and just continue along the trail forgetting about it? Meanwhile, the venom is doing its thing. I gotta read the top comment here too. "I saw a park ranger draw his pistol on a man in Florida when a guy shoved a quote milk snake in his face that he had caught. It was a coral snake." And the obvious implications of this is that milk snakes are not venomous, but coral snakes are. And they do look somewhat similar. And of course it was a Florida man who did this. I mean, who else would it be? Alright guys, that's it for today's Entitled People. Subscribe for more and comment down below if there's any subreddits or topics you want to see me cover. And with that, I'm out of here, so have an amazing day everyone, and I'll see you next time.